Hi guys, I am Ashlee Martino-Tarr. I am a 3D artist and workflow specialist, and I work currently for NVIDIA. So a lot of my work revolves around creating art in a technical space. My training is in VFX. And so when generative AI kind of came about in the vision space or the visual space, creating images, about March-ish last year, I kind of immediately jumped on that. And since I've started working with generative AI, I've made about 600,000 images to date. Does everybody get to see them? Not really. And that's because creating art with generative AI is a process. And today I want to show you guys how you can actually leverage these tools in your own creative workflows and make the best of them. So without further ado, I'm going to play a little video that will get everybody kind of acclimated, and then we're going to deep dive into it. So here is a little overview of some of the things you can do with generative AI art, some things you may not have seen before. Taking your sketches, turning them into things, using text to image to generate characters and generate them well. And so let's get into a little overview of what that means. Here we have what everybody knows, text to image. You can write stuff and make stuff, but there's a lot more to generative AI than just that. And to actually create great art, you need to understand what else is available in your pipeline. We have a ton of other features, and I'm gonna go into that more deeply after this slide. So sorry the audio is not playing. This is just a little preview of some of the things that are to come. ControlNet, which is an incredibly powerful neural network that allows you to generate within boundaries, is a game changer for creating art and design. And so you can see how you can actually leverage it here to create different types of products. Here we are showcasing like the entire pipeline, right? So I had a voiceover for this. I guess I just have to talk to it. So I'm just showing you guys kind of how I actually work with these tools. Oh, am I a little loud? Oh, sorry guys. I do talk very loud. I'll just move the mic down a little bit. Yeah, so basically here, I'm walking you guys through an entire pipeline of how I actually create something with something simple, a shoe. Everybody knows what they look like, so we can all enjoy the different aspects of it. And I'm highlighting a whole bunch of different areas here, like being able to fine tune on new styles of shoes and actually generate them in different ways, and being able to completely upscale my images to 8K or higher. So all of these are actual tools that you can leverage today in a variety of different ways, in a variety of different sub-tool sets, and we're gonna go over all of that. So I'm just gonna click through this and get started. Like I said, we all know how to make an art piece. Everybody in the media talks about it. It's really easy. You just say a few words and it makes an image for you. But there's a lot more to actually making a nice visual turn into art. And so when we move on here, we have to understand the different areas that we can work in. There is the ability to generate images, videos, and 3D models. All of these start with text to image, but they become much better with an artist's touch and with the ability to use different tools. And so let's dive into how generative AI works and actually what are these models. So we're gonna be focusing on vision today, but this applies into video space and into 3D space as well. So we're gonna talk about denoising diffusion probabilistic models. Basically, I'm gonna pause this because it just keeps going. Basically, how this works is a DAPM learns by being given a ton of images. It takes those images and it adds noise to those images. Then it creates another set of images where it takes the noise away. Now you have two images, and it compares the original image to the new image it generates. Then what happens is that the neural network looks at the two images, and if the images are close, the network is rewarded, and if the images are far apart, the network is actually punished. That is moving way too fast. This is how diffusion networks learn. They learn like we do. We, as people, are taught to see something, and then we are taught to execute on that thing. It's like practicing. And so once a diffusion network has practiced something enough, it can actually create completely unique animals or dogs or characters that it's never seen before. These foundational models are what are able to generate our images today. So with generative AI, a lot of things are possible. Of course, you can generate images. But you can do a lot more than that. You can actually guide your creations. You can use your own sketches, your own photos, your own ideas, and your own color palettes to generate very, very unique pieces of art that speak in your artist's voice. And of course, you can personalize your generative AI networks to know certain people or to emulate certain styles. Or one of my favorite things to do is I've fine-tuned a model to emulate my own artistic style. So I basically have an AI assistant that can help me visualize in my own kind of visual language, so to speak. So we're gonna go over all of that. And the first place we're gonna start is with text, because there's been a lot of focus on prompt engineering. And a lot of people, again, think that when you say something to the engine, it's gonna know what you want. But the reality is if I went out to each of you and I asked you to make me a fluffy space rabbit, you would all think of a different kind of fluffy space rabbit because I didn't give you enough parameters. And so you could all give me your fluffy space rabbits and I might like 10 of them or I might not like any of them. And then I have to say, go back and make the fluffy space rabbit again, but make it with more parameters. That's where prompt engineering comes in, because you can start to control your designs a lot more by understanding how to communicate what you want in the engine. So let's break down this image, which seems to be broken. Oh, there it goes. Let's break down this image and the text in it. First, there's something known as positive prompting. Positive prompting is just basically everything you want in the image. And it starts with defining the subject. So in this case, we want a space bunny rabbit. Then after that, we add the description. This is everything else pertaining to the bunny rabbit. What style is it in? What color is it? What environment is it in? All of these go into your description. The next bit is known as token weighting, and these are all a little bit offset for some reason. I'm not sure why, but token weighting is the ability to put more emphasis on certain parts than other parts. And that's really, really important because when you list out a bunch of stuff to your Starbucks barista or to your, I don't know, In-N-Out burger guy, it's hard to remember everything unless you emphasize the things that you want for sure. And so that's what this does. The next thing is, this is in the wrong spot, but there is an and here. That's known as a combiner. A combiner is the ability to actually take two very separate ideas and put them together. And this allows you to actually control the visual output a lot better, because if you said, hey, I want a space bunny and I want him to be like in a Star Wars scape and I want it to also be an alien planet and I want it to have all this stuff, it can be a lot. So instead you say, I want a fluffy space bunny and I want him to look this way. And please make him on an alien planet. Basically, you separate out the things so that it's easier for the AI to understand what you want. By doing this, you actually are much better able to control your designs. But you can see something else popped up here. This is known as a negative prompt. You guys all know when you order food, or if you are an artist and you have a director, one of the first things they'll do is they'll tell you what they don't want. Same thing you need to do here in prompt engineering. You need to say, hey, these are the things I don't want. I don't want these styles. I don't want these things. And that way, you start to sharpen the focus on the designs that you get out of the engine. Negative prompting is incredibly important to creating realistic and beautiful renderings of your designs that don't look so generative. And so, you know, this is a great starting point. This allows you to basically curate from the conscience of a generative network, because it has a collection memory of billions of images. And so you need to be able to kind of hone in on exactly what you want in there to get the best results. This bunny's cute, but I don't like it. And I would do a lot to change it. So I'm gonna tell you how I would do that. Anyone can create an image, but designers and artists are the ones that create art. How do they do it? Well, first, they understand prompt engineering, of course. Knowing how to prompt is always going to be important. It helps you establish a theme and a style. But there's more. If you have a strong design underneath or a strong knowledge of design, you can start to control the composition and the characteristics in your scene. Finally, if you know how to use the artistic tools in your arsenal to better develop a design, you're gonna have a much more successful generation. And all of these combined together allow you to create refined designs that are capable of conveying specific abstract concepts in your art style. So in this case, this bunny, maybe it doesn't look like it to you guys, but this bunny is more my art style than this bunny. I'm very happy with it. And so all of that stuff can be broken down into a pipeline of generative AI tools. Text to image, we all know about. But you can also use text to image with a neural network called a ControlNet. This allows you to take a sketch or a picture or whatever you want, really, and use it as a guide to generate onto. You create boundaries. Next, after that, you can send these to image. I call this design permutations. I will actually run a base that I like with the colors that I like through multiple permutations, sometimes hundreds, until I find the one that I want. And then next, you send it to inpainting. I'm gonna move over here. And you can see how much this rabbit changes over time. Inpainting is incredibly powerful. You can mask out an area of your scene and ask it to generate something else in its stead. And it does this in a very intuitive way. It's contextually aware. It understands what's already in the scene, so it doesn't feel like everything is collaged together. And you can start to slowly refine your design results. Finally, one of my favorite features, actually, of generative AI is the ability to outpaint. Because outpainting means that when creative tells me, hey, you know that image that we told you to make? And it was supposed to be square because it's for Instagram. Well, turns out we need it as a banner on a website. We need it to be 10 times longer. Well, with outpainting, you were actually able to generate pixels where there were none before. It's able to take the context of your scene and expand the buffer of the canvas. And this is huge because it just saves you so much time. As an artist, if you don't know what your aspect ratio is going to be and you generate for a specific aspect ratio, it really, really sucks when someone tells you, okay, now do a different one. This will actually save a lot of time. So all of these tools are also aided by the ControlNet, which allows me to kind of keep my design in that initial area of focus, my initial drawing. And that's how I'm able to get images like I do with generative AI. It's an incredibly iterative process. It usually takes multiple tries and multiple generations to get there, but it's all controlled and it's all guided by me. It's not as random as we think it has to be. With text to image, it can be, because you don't have all of the anchors of visual design at your disposal. Language can only give you so much in visuals. So being able to use image to image, inpainting and outpainting will give you control over your composition, your mood, characteristics, and tonality. So now I'm going to talk you through what I was just showing you, ControlNet. You can start with an image like this. I spent about 30 seconds drawing this on a piece of paper, thought it was cute. And then you can use a first pass of ControlNet to imagine what that image would look like in color. And if you like that, you can take it through ControlNet one more time and refine it, make it more detailed. And finally, if you like that, you upscale it. And basically, from that sketch to this, if you like the image all the way through, which you may not, it could take you 30 seconds. It's pretty cool. And so let's kind of talk a little bit more about ControlNet, because I said that I went through multiple passes. What that means is there are many ways to analyze an image. And ControlNet actually produces many different types of boundaries of it. And based off of those boundaries, it's able to diffuse into those areas. And so you can actually explore so many different visual elements in your scene. And here you can see I've taken multiple creature thumbnails, because that's my favorite thing to do, and actually seen them rendered. This is great, and it informs so many of my design decisions. I actually take a lot of these creatures, I up-res them, and I paint over them, and I use them to inform my 3D creature designs. So it's pretty cool. So again, here's another example of ControlNet. It doesn't just have to be creatures. I know I do a lot of creatures, but it can be shoes, or it can be people. And you can use ControlNet to create yourself some virtual avatars that you can then control with your face. So this is a video of me controlling the avatar underneath. Obviously, you can't see my face there. And it's really, really cool. So you ever have a bad hair day, you can quickly generate yourself a new drawing and use that on your next team meeting. It's pretty cool. And so the next kind of thing that we haven't talked about yet with diffusion and generative AI is the ability to fine-tune. That's basically taking a model and adding new data into it. So let's take this as an example. I have a model that can generate anything, and I've asked it to generate for me a sci-fi lady with goggles. This is a very generic sci-fi lady. I mean, I guess you could say it sort of looks like me. They're all kind of in that face shape range, but I actually want it to look like me. So what I can do is I can take some images of myself and I can tell the AI, here, this is me. Can you please learn what I look like so I can see what I would look like in a colorful cyberpunk world? And the result is something like this here. So it's pretty cool. Now I can see myself illustrated in so many different ways, and it's amazing for me. You know, outside of just people, you have the ability to do this with anything, with styles, with animals, etc. Here, for example, I have a lot of friends. They all have dogs. I trained the network to recognize all of their dogs. And I also trained the network on some of my color palettes and artistic styles. Now, I can actually tell the network, let me go back here, to generate the dog that I trained in a style that I made. And now I can start to visualize things in different angles, different lighting scenarios, in different situations much more easily. And it's a lot more controlled because it's data and content that I have given the model. It is personalized to my specific needs. It's really, really cool. And so outside of fine-tuning, you can do so much more. In this case, I fine-tuned a model to recognize my CEO, and I put him in a spacesuit, because why not? But generative AI can do a lot more than just generate images. They can generate important data maps. So, for example, a depth map can be used to create poly files or geometry files that you can then throw into a 3D scene. This is Blender. And you can start to create interactive parallax sequences. So here's a little video of that entire process. I told you guys that I trained the data. This is how I did it. I took an archive of Jensen, and I basically told them, this is Jensen, and I also said, and this is a man. Now take Jensen and take the man and make me a Jensen man. Okay? That's how fine-tuning works. It's a lot easier than you think. It's like teaching a kid. If you give your kids a whole bunch of fruits, you have to tell them what the fruits are. And then eventually they learn what the fruits are, and you can say, pick out an apple, and they can do it. Doing generative AI is the same way. And here I'm going through the whole process of how I created Jensen, so you guys can see the iterative process. So I start with text to image, I find an image I like, and then I use image to image to slowly bring in Jensen's likeness back into the photo. And then after that, I expand the canvas, because why not? And this is my in-painting process. I wanted to show you guys how I mask things out to control certain aspects of the scene. So I actually have, there's still a lot of randomness, but I have a lot more control than most people would. And I'm able to iterate rapidly and very quickly. I'm generating hundreds of images at this point to create this one person. And at the end, I'm able to turn it into a 3D parallax interactive scene. Using that same technique, I'm able to quickly visualize actors, people, or characters in certain scenarios. In this case, I used image to image to get a kind of cool shot, and then I put my face into it. So it's really cool because you can start to visualize certain actors, certain people, certain characters in scenarios simply by fine-tuning the environment. And here, I just wanted to point out that this particular scene took me one training session and 653 images to get to that final result. And it took me only 1.75 artist hours, maybe almost 2 hours. It's pretty fast. Fine-tuning is actually like lightning fast. You do not need a lot to actually make something cool. 10 images, 20 images is all you need to train a concept into a foundational model. And here is another section here. This is another creative process of mine where I actually started in Mid-Journey and moved to Stable Diffusion to create a cast of cyberpunk animals. Each of these took 1,600 to 2,000 generations over and over to come to the final results that you see here. But as you can see, there's a lot involved. You end up taking these photos into Photoshop and relighting them, painting over them, adding things to them. You use in-painting and out-painting to add new aspects to them, and you start to control the overall composition and design of your scene until you get the thing that you love. So let me quickly show you guys this. Some of you have seen this before. This is one of my older workflows, pre-ControlNet. Now it's a little more complex. But this is what I'm talking about. You'll usually start with text to image to kind of get an idea of what you want. And then you'll use a ton of other tools to create a whole bunch of variations until you get something that you like to generate over. And here's another example that actually shows how you can use this outside of just diffusion networks. In this case, I made something pretty cool in Mid-Journey. I wanted her to look a little more human, and I wanted some other colors. I spent about 10 minutes painting that character in Photoshop to get the colors that I wanted, the proportions that I wanted over top of this. And then I used Stable Diffusion to refine that and to make it better. And here, like I said, diffusion models aren't always controllable. So yeah, here, there's actually plants in her hair. So I used in-painting and out-painting to remove those. So with diffusion models, if you know what tools are available to you, you actually have a ton of creative freedom and a ton of creative control to build these out. And for me, it's been an incredible experience. I have this all on my local machine, and I'm able to actually generate these on the fly as many times as I want. And this creative process is invaluable. So one other thing I want to point out is that this expands way beyond just images, like I said. I've used Stable Diffusion and Mid-Journey and DDPMs in general to be able to create permutations of a design. I've also used really interesting neural networks that allow you to analyze floor plans and turn them to 3D environments or 3D scenes. And I've used GANs like NVIDIA Canvas to paint environments, and I'm able to combine all of these together to create full scenes. And this is really, really powerful because it actually affects the entire creative process. I use generative AI to help me quickly and rapidly produce materials like never before. I used to be a material artist. I used to work with shaders and materials all the time. And I've made like flexible subsars and things that you could actually use to create infinite amount of bricks. But those take a lot of time, hours and days of working and finagling a node network. If you're just visualizing something, it really helps to be able to quickly create a seamless pattern so you can get your idea out before you spend all that time building a super complicated material. And I do have this whole workflow here, so you can kind of see the entire process of how I work in these diffusion models. So here I take an image, and basically I'm actually creating new designs of that image until I find something that kind of speaks to me and inspires me. The next thing I do is I generated a floor plan actually with generative AI, and then I used planar to scene to turn it into a 3D model. And then I used NVIDIA Canvas to create an environment. So you can think of this as like, it doesn't have to be a house. It can be a spaceship or an air hangar. And you can create environments that actually affect the lighting of your scene. And you can start to dynamically build new lighting environments that you can leverage on the fly when you're doing look dev and pre-production visualization. And it's really, really powerful. These are all AI tools that you can actually take today and use. They're available for anyone. They're not hidden, they're not secret, and they have so much potential to aid you in your workflows and to make design a much more fun process as opposed to getting stuck on the technical details and spending such a long time doing really, really monotonous stuff. So here I'm just showcasing how I actually use diffusion with textures. ControlNet is huge. I can actually use ControlNet to generate very specific patterns. So if I want herringbone wood, I load it into my ControlNet, and I'm able to generate wood patterns in that specific pattern as well. And it's amazing. I don't have to spend hours inside of Substance Designer anymore, like building out the perfect wood material. If I am just looking to see what kind of material I want to put on there, it just takes me a few seconds. And this is the power that generative AI brings us. It gives you so much freedom and control. And this is an incredibly iterative process. It's not something that takes design out of the hands of artists. I am an artist, and I love this tool because it allows me to iterate and to explore and to be inspired by happy accidents and changes. And I've actually found it to be an incredible boost to my workflow, and sometimes a little bit of a distraction as well, because the reality is you'll sometimes start making something and it's very easy to end up down a creative rabbit hole. You end up with extra time and you're like, oh, well, what if I do this? What if I do that? And sometimes that's not always the best because you still have a deadline and you gotta get stuff done. But as you can see here, this entire scene came together with AI helping every step of the way. But it didn't take away from my creative choices and my creative design. And that's kind of where I wanted to kind of bring things. The last thing I want to show you, because a lot of people have been asking, 3D generative AI is coming. There are already some models available for you to try, like Shape E and Pointy. They're more efficient models. And as we move forward and as these get better, they're going to get more and more detailed. So you can imagine being able to use text to 3D to create placeholder assets that you can then use inside of your workflows. And that's basically all I have to say today about generative AI stuff.